All right, so welcome guys to the Dental School Showcase. We're going to be talking about some important concepts and important things that you guys need to know about as you're considering dental school as a possible career. And then we're going to review some schools in the area. So I'm Teresa Blackman. I'm the Pre-Health Professions Advisor here at UTC. I've met a few of you, but I'm here to help you however you need on your dental school journey. I'm in the third floor. I'm on the third floor, I'm not in the floor. I'm on the third floor of the UTC library, but we're doing predominantly virtual appointments. And you can have my email address and then my office number if you need to get a hold of me. You can also schedule an appointment with me on Navigate. And if you need the instructions for that, they are on the pre-health website, or you can just shoot me an email. So like I said earlier, the purpose of this showcase is to really talk about the nuts and bolts of what you need to know about dental school. We're also going to talk about what makes a good dental school application, how to review dental schools for best fit, and then to discuss in a little bit of detail about the dental schools in the area, because most of you are going to be applying to at least one or two of these. So the first thing that we want to go over are the acronyms, the abbreviations. When you are looking at any sort of health profession, there is a ton of abbreviations because they like to name things really, really long stuff, and no one wants to type or say that every time. So kind of want to go through a few of these that you're going to be seeing a lot and make sure you really understand what they mean so that you can kind of pick what's going to be best for you. So a DDS, that's probably one of the things that you see fairly frequently. That's a doctor of dental surgery. This is the most common degree awarded. So you're going to see most dental programs award this. But there's also a DMD, a doctor of medicine in dentistry, or a doctor of dental medicine. There's no difference between the education and the scope of practice. You can do everything as a DDS that you can as a DMD. It's just a little bit of focus is different, and different certifications that schools go through. And some of the schools that we're going to talk about today do have DMD programs, but either one is fine. If you want to be a dentist, either degree is great. The abbreviation you do need to be mindful of that's not a full-fledged dentist is a registered dental hygienist, or an RDH. So dental hygienists do not attend medical school or dental school. They're not permitted to treat patients in the same capacity. They're not on the level of dentists. They're not going to be performing most procedures. They're not going to be diagnosing. They're an assistant, a bit like a nurse. So different level of education. If you are interested in dental hygiene, you definitely want to chat with me because it's a very different path. But if you see an RDH, that is a registered dental hygienist. And then finally, the ADEA, that is the American Dental Education Association. It's the nonprofit group that represents academic dentistry. So it's going to oversee dental school process of application and certifications of dental school. And it's got a lot of really good resources for prospective dental students as well. So I definitely encourage you, if you haven't, to check out their website and the resources that they have. Now, shifting to some terms that are in regards to the actual application process, this is the most letter-heavy abbreviation of all of them, the AADSAS, and that is the Associated American Dental Schools Application Service. It's a mouthful. But this is a centralized application that you are going to be utilizing for most dental programs in the US. So unlike applying to UTC, or if you applied to other colleges where you went to that school's admission site and you pulled up the application and you filled it out, this is a common application, and some of you may have filled that out when you applied to multiple colleges, but all of your information, all of your shadowing experience, your references, your letter of interest, your everything goes into this common application or the centralized application, and you designate what schools you want it sent to, and those are the schools that get access to it. And so it's a little bit different than how you may be used to applying to schools and things. And the important thing to remember when you're using these centralized application services, this is not a point for you to talk about how much you love Meharry or how much you really, really want to go to University of Louisville. This is all about you talking about and showcasing why you are going to be the best dentist, why you want to be a dentist, because all the schools will see it. And so if you talk about how much you love a specific school, all the other schools may say, okay, well, you've made your choice. We have other applicants that are interested, so we're going to move forward with them. So just be mindful of that. There's also cost. So most of these centralized application services, there is a cost for the initial application, and then each additional school is an added cost. And the information has just left my brain immediately as to whether it's a set rate or a scale. So once we're done with this presentation, I will verify that and share that with you. So even those of us that have all the information forget some things sometimes. So it's okay, it's a lot. So the TMD SAS is the Texas Medical and Dental School Application Service. So Texas likes to be a little bit extra, and they have their own application service for dental, medical, and vet schools. So if you are thinking about going to a dental school in Texas, or you are from Texas and you want to go back and go to dental school, you are going to have to fill out a different application. And so this is something to think about if you are thinking about applying to Texas schools and then other schools. You will have to fill out both applications and pay the cost and all that fun stuff. So just a heads up, but the centralized service, it works the same as the national for Texas. It's just for the state of Texas. And then finally, there's the DAT, which you've probably heard in like whispered silence and fear. And everyone's like, oh gosh, the DAT. So the DAT is the dental admissions test. It's a timed multiple choice entrance exam that pretty much every dental school requires. And so you have to take. And it's a bit of a beast. So you want to make sure that you are preparing for that. And plug for spring 21 events. We are going to be doing a couple of DAT focused events with folks that have taken the DAT, and they can share their experiences with you. So keep an eye on the pre-health website for that. So transitioning to what you need to apply to dental school. This is always the biggest question I get. Okay, what do I need to do? What are the things that I need to have? So the first thing you need to have is a competitive GPA. And so the competitive GPA in the state of Tennessee is around a 3.55. So this is the average GPA that most students getting into dental programs in Tennessee have. It varies state to state, but a 3.5, I mean, shooting for a 3.55 is going to set you up to be fairly competitive. Some schools do also do an overall GPA and a science GPA. You might see that. You'll definitely see that on the guide maps in the pre-health website. And so the overall GPA is all the things. It's all the college credit you've ever taken that's graded. So it's your dual enrollment, it's your English comp class, it's the non-Western culture course. You're like, why am I in this class? It's everything. Then the science GPA is traditionally math, physics, chemistry, and biology. So a lot of programs will run the science GPA separate of an overall GPA, so you'll have two. And so you want to make sure as you're looking at schools that you are in the competitive range for both of them. You're also going to need to take the DAT. Competitive scores range from a 19 to a 21. Ideally, if you can hit like a 20-ish, 20.1 or higher, you're going to be in a good, solid, you're going to be in a comfortable place where you feel like, okay, my score is solid. You're not going to be worried that, you have a strong application with everything but your score. And again, programs, and I will show you, programs advertise their average DAT score. So if you have a lower DAT score, you can start looking at dental schools to see what is their average. If maybe you got an 18 and the average of a school is maybe an 18 or a 19, you may have a better chance of getting into a program there than if you look at a school that's averaging a 20 or a 21 and you only have an 18. But I do want to remind you, schools do a holistic review. They look at everything. So don't think that a lower DAT score is sort of the nail in the coffin, but also don't ride on the fact that, well, they don't just look at the DAT score. Correct, but it still needs to be in a competitive range. So there are required classes. that you need for dental school. It's your general biology 1 and 2, your general chemistry 1 and 2, your organic 1 and 2, that's that 30-10, 30-20 sequence. Most dental schools are going to require biochemistry, which is chemistry 45-10, and then the year of general physics. A lot of dental schools are also going to require a calculus class. Now, some will say minimum of 3 credit hour calculus course. Some will not say a minimum hour requirement, or they may designate a 4-hour calculus requirement. This is where schools kind of vary, so it's important to understand how to search for programs and figure out what individual programs want. Because if your dental schools all just want a 3 credit calculus course, Math 1830 would be appropriate. It's basic calculus, it's a prerequisite for physics, so that would be fine. But if you are being asked to complete a 4-hour calculus course, then you will have to take Math 1950. So again, it just depends on the program. And if you are in a major that requires Math 1950 or requires 1830, as long as you know your program's policy regarding calculus, there's no need for you to take an extra class. Then there's additional courses that are strongly recommended. And a lot of people mess up by thinking, okay, it's just recommended, it's not required. But professional schools are looking for answers to questions they didn't ask as much as they are looking for answers to questions they do ask. And one of the big things they look at is, how willing are you to go the extra mile? How serious are you about this? Are you just interested in doing the bare minimum? Or if we give you some other benchmarks, are you willing to do that? So it's always a good idea to take at least some of the additional courses that are strongly recommended. Most commonly, you're going to see anatomy and physiology, which is that biology 2060, 2080, a microbiology, genetics, which is biology 3250, or sometimes something like immunology or virology or something like that. Now, I do get asked a lot about microbiology because as we know, there are two. There's the 2100 that's for nursing students, and then there's the 4220, which is for biology majors. Unless the program says specifically they require or would prefer the microbiology taken by science majors, either is fine. But even if you have biology 2100 credit and your program is saying, well, we would really like to see the major sequence, that's not necessarily I have to go take this again. You may opt to. It kind of is up to you. It depends on the program. But don't feel like you have to repeat the class unless it says straight up like, we want this. But some programs you may see they require some of these courses that I've listed as recommended. And the reason that they're in the recommended category is they are not sort of a universal, every school is going to ask you to do these. So just, again, be mindful of the programs and what their requirements are. So what you don't need to apply to medical school, you don't need a specific major. And in fact, we have several students, one in particular who's an exercise science major. That student has had multiple interviews for dental schools and is a very competitive candidate. So you do not have to be a specific major. People tend to think biology and chemistry are the go-tos for professional programs. And they are great fits. They're going to knock out a lot of sciences. They're going to provide you the space to take all those recommended courses. But there's also additional science outside of the dental school required or recommended that they will ask you to do. And if you remember back to us talking about the GPAs a minute ago, they're going to factor in all biology, chemistry, physics, and math. So if you are taking a lot of extra chemistry or biology courses for your major that you don't need for dental school, but it was hard, it wasn't, there was a pandemic or what have you, it's not just going to drop your science GPA, it's also going to drop your overall GPA. So you want to kind of think about this strategically of, what sciences am I good at? What sciences do I need? What sciences do I maybe not need to find a major that you're really going to excel at? And we are seeing a lot more acceptances across the board of non-science majors and social sciences and things like that. So you really want to major in what you excel in because that's how you're going to be competitive. You also don't need to enroll in dental school as soon as you graduate. We're very much in this mindset of, okay, I graduated high school, now I'm going to college, now I'm going to go to dental school, then I'm going to go get a job. And then you look up and you're like, where did my life go? What is happening? So take time. Professional schools like seeing students that are ready, not just academically, but emotionally, and they kind of have a good sense of self. They're looking for the whole package. And if you just need a year to travel or do the Disney college program or sit on a beach and think about life, take that time because, well, from experience, once you get a big kid job and then you have big kid responsibilities, it's really hard to just say, I'm going to go to France for 6 months. So think about gap years as a way to enhance your application, give you more experience. There are tons of nonprofit organizations that work with folks with dental issues. So you could always volunteer. So you can use your gap year or years as a way to enhance your application. So you just want to make sure you apply when you're ready because this is a big commitment, not just time-wise, but financially, it's very expensive. And you're doing a lot. Once you finish the education portion, you're doing certifications, you're taking tests, you're working. It'll be very easy to look up and see 20 years have passed. So take the gap year if you need it, apply when you're ready. You will be far more better off if you take a year and you get in because you applied when you're ready, then you just follow the timeline that you arbitrarily made and you don't get in and then you have to reapply and do all the things. So it's my TED Talk for the day. Thank you for coming. So speaking of timeline, we're going to talk about the application timeline because this is really the part that surprises a lot of people. So it takes a while to apply to dental school. It is not something you can just decide, I'm going to do that this weekend. You will have a lot of stuff that you need to do. So the entire process takes around 18 months from start to finish. So if you are thinking about going in to dental school, the summer after you graduate, and you are planning on graduating in 4 years, then the fall of your junior year is really when you start focusing on dental school application. So you want to make sure that you complete all of your requirements, so you have all your courses completed. And then late spring of your junior year, you're going to register for and take the DAT. So this is really important to know. You cannot just sign up to take the DAT. You have to register for it. They have to give you permission to take the test, and then you get to pick your date. And a lot of schools will not even view your application as complete until your DAT is in. So you also want to make sure, okay, if my school has a, July 1st deadline, knowing how long it takes the DAT to process scores and make those scores available for you to then send them to the school. You kind of have to do some math and backtrack it. So you're really going to be looking at taking the DAT in maybe late spring or early summer. And then you do want to know what schools you are planning on. You don't have to know for sure, but you want to have a pretty good idea because I believe there's a fee. Don't quote me on this. I will find out for sure, but I believe there's either a fee or it is a pretty painstaking process to go back in and edit. And at some point you can't edit your DAT information for those scores to be sent. So you really want to know what schools you're planning on attending when you apply to take the DAT so that you can list them. So the summer of your junior year, you're going to submit your application and all the required materials. And like I mentioned earlier, your application is often not considered complete until your DAT scores are there. So timing is very important. Interviews start rolling in sort of mid-August through maybe mid-October to late October. And folks start hearing about whether or not they are getting in first part of December. And then schools generally start in July or August. So that is the quick, fast, and in a hurry breakdown of the process of applying to dental school. So really thinking about, even if you're a freshman or a sophomore, when you want to start dental school, you got to backtrack it some time And that's a good indication to know if you are ready. Because if you are thinking, okay, I wanted to start dental school at this time, but you start doing the math and then you get really uncomfortable at how quickly that application or that DAT date is, it's okay to push it back. And I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one to kind of talk through what timeline is going to be best fit for you. Because it's expensive. The DAT is very expensive. It's like $450. Yeah. So I've mentioned a lot of times throughout this whole process, check with your individual program, know what your program wants, know what your school wants. And a key component of being ready for dental school is knowing what schools you want to apply to. So these are some things you kind of want to run through as you think about where do I want to go. There are not as many dental schools as there are med schools and PA programs, so there is a little bit more of a limitation in location, but location is really important. What area of the country interests you? Is there a specific pull to an area that you have? Do you have family or friends in that area? This is something that people don't really think about, especially when we're in college. We're like, I'm independent, I live on my own. I don't want to go near family again. Like, I'm gonna live my truth, which is great. But you can't work when you're in dental school. Dental school is a full-time job. And so it may be nice to have a family member or a friend close to where pop in for a home cooked meal, pop in to use laundry, pop in to just not be on campus at dental school for a second. Having that support system could be really helpful. And especially if you have a family or a significant other, that's a good support system for them as well, because you will not see them very much. Another thing to consider is, can you afford the cost of living? I have a good friend that lives in Boston, and when she told me how much her apartment was, I had a heart attack. I think she said she pays close to $3,200 a month for a 500 square foot apartment near downtown Boston. Yeah, it's very expensive. So think about that. And she was going to university up in that area, so she wanted to live fairly close to her school. And she was like, this is all I could find in my price range, which to me, I'm like, what is your price range? But you want to think about that because you're not going to really be able to work. So you're going to have to find a way to finance that, or you're going to have to take out, loans and things like that. So you don't want to take out an extra maybe $15,000 to $16,000 in loans that you're going to have to repay just because the place you were going to school was very, very expensive and outside your price range. Go move there after you're a dentist when you're making money. But you do want to think about that. Another thing to think about is, are there incentives to stay closer to your home state? The programs that we're going to go over in a second, some of them do have strong incentives for state residents. So while it may not be ideal to stay in your home state, you want to spread those wings and get out there. It might be beneficial to just go to dental school in your home state and then reach out, spread those wings after you're a dentist. You also want to be mindful of requirements. Do you meet the requirements? Are there competitive ranges for the DAT and the GPA? Do you meet those? Are you in range? I will help you as much as possible, and I will be one of your biggest cheerleaders, but I also will encourage you to be mindful that if you're going to spend all this money applying to these Ivy League programs, but you don't have Ivy League grades and a DAT score, you may be wasting your money, and you may not be able to apply to a program that is more within your grasp given your GPA or your DAT score. So just make sure you're in the competitive range for that. And then mission fit. This is something I don't think really anybody thinks about. But what's the dental school's sphere of influence? What is their mission? What do they say is important to them? Does their mission align with yours? There are some schools that are really focused on, rural care and giving folks that don't have access to dental care the ability to have access. There are other schools that are focused maybe on surgery or a specific type of dental practice. So matching up is really helpful. Not every dental school is going to be right for every student. And that is okay. This is not a desperate, I must get in anywhere that will take me. Because if a school is not going to fit what you're hoping to get from it, then you're not going to be as successful. So I have some resources for you searching programs. The UTC Pre-Health website, if you guys have not seen it, well, you've been on it at some point because you registered for this event, but the guide maps tile actually has a lot of the information on our regional schools under that Southeast hyperlink. So when you click on that, it's going to give you a lot of information about schools in the region. But if you're looking at schools outside the region, the ADA has a dental school explorer that is really fantastic. And I am super impressed with a couple of the national organizations. They have really stepped up their program search game. So the ADA is really friendly. It's really easy to use. It's got really fabulous information, and then it's got contact information for programs. So it's a really great resource for you to start looking through and figure out what dental schools am I interested in. And they almost all list some sort of mission or value or objective. So it gives you a good sense of the program. So now we're going to shift into actually looking at some programs. And of course, we're going to start with Tennessee because we are in Tennessee and probably a good chunk of you are Tennessee residents. So the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, this is one of the 2 dental programs in the state. It is located in Memphis. There's always a lot of confusion with UT Health Science Center. People think it's in Knoxville. No, it is in Memphis. The dental program is in Memphis. If you get into UT Health Science Center for dental school, you're going to Memphis. And the class size is around 100. So it's maybe an average size, maybe a little bit on the larger side. Their average GPA overall, so this is all the credits, is a 3.62, and their average DAT is a 20.1. Now this data is from the class that started in July of 2020. So we generally have data for the next incoming class, maybe like mid-spring. So if there's a particular school you're interested in, that you want to know what their data as far as DAT and GPA averages are, follow back up with me maybe like mid-April, and I should have it by then. If not, I can find out. You do not have to complete an undergraduate degree, but it is strongly recommended. I've not heard of anyone that has gotten into this program without an undergrad degree, but it's technically possible. I would recommend finishing your bachelor's degree, but that is up to you. So they do require at least 50 hours of shadowing a general dentist, I can't speak, but additional hours are strongly encouraged. Some schools will publish the average shadowing hours that their incoming class has. Of the students that I have talked to, it ranges around the 150 to 200 range of shadowing is what most folks have that are deemed competitive. So definitely be mindful of that. I know right now COVID is not making this easy for us all for many reasons, but shadowing is a challenge. So I'm working hard to get you guys some resources, but if you are having problems finding shadowing opportunities with dentists, let me know. We can brainstorm ways to get that for you. They will not let you take DAT more than 3 times, and they will not review your application without DAT scores. So if UT Science Center is on your top list, you need to be very focused on doing that DAT well and doing that DAT once. They do accept AP and CLEP as long as UTC awards credit. So what that means is if you've taken Gen Bio, you got Gen Bio 1 and 2 credit because you took AP and UTC gave you credit for it, UT Health Science Center will honor that and will not make you retake the class. Now, some schools are not like that. They will not accept AP or dual enrollment at all. So you just want to be mindful, and the ADAA School Finder has got a little chart and it's got little check boxes of whether or not they'll accept AP or IB with any restrictions. 90% of the incoming class is Tennessee residents. They reserve about 90% of the seats for folks that are Tennessee residents. You do also have to be a US citizen or permanent resident. So this is not a program that if you're an international student, you would be eligible to apply to. But if you are a Tennessean, should be applying to this program because you have a good chance of getting in, better than someone from Georgia. And their focus really is on bringing healthcare to Tennessee. So if that is your jam, that's what you want to do, then this is definitely a school that you will want to apply to, and you would address topics in your personal statement, which that is another event that we have on Health Professions Week, is talking about personal statements, which is quite possibly the hardest thing you'll ever write because there are no rules, but there are a bunch of rules. So I'm happy to talk you guys through that if you have questions. They also don't require letters of recommendation, which is really weird, but it aids in acceptance. I would strongly encourage you to have letters of recommendation because most other schools are going to require them. Generally, letters of rec are going to be from science professors or dentists that you have shadowed. So be on the lookout for folks that can write for you. They do require that all of your prerequisites have to be a C or higher. Online courses up until COVID had not been accepted for required courses. A lot of programs have changed that policy. UT Health Science Center has been one of them. So as we sort of figure out life in the COVID world, don't stress about having your courses online. Across the board, professional programs have been really clear that they're not going to penalize you. They are not going to make this harder for you guys. So they're not going to, for the most part, not allow online coursework. A lot have also come out and said they would accept pass-fail credit. So if you took some pass-fail credit or satisfactory no credit, I think is how we listed it in the spring of 2020. You're in online classes now. You're looking at online classes for spring and summer. Don't stress about it. You should be fine. But if you are concerned, definitely, check in with me and we can verify with the individual program what their policy is. But for the most part, we're seeing them say, you know what, as long as most universities in the country are mostly online, we're going to accept this online sciences. It's also important to note, because people do forget this a lot, the admissions committee will not accept anything that you send to the college. So everything you send has to go through your centralized application. And then they make decisions based on GPA, DAT scores, responses to items on the survey, interview assessments, and other personal information. So it's really a very holistic review. So don't feel like, oh, one part of my application is really weak, so I'm not going to get in. Work on strengthening your application as much as possible, but one thing is not going to sink you. So just be mindful of that. So the other dental school in the state of Tennessee is Meharry Medical College School of Dentistry, which is in Nashville. They have a smaller class size of 60. Their average stat score is an 18.3 and their GPA average is a 3.25. They do require that you complete an undergrad degree. They also do specifically require that you complete calculus, so either Math 1830 or 1950. Here's a little bit of their mission and the values that are sort of surround their mission. They value excellence, respect, integrity, accountability, teamwork, and service. So really great things, good things to espouse. They also require 50 hours of shadowing. International students and Canadian citizens are also welcome to apply to their program, whereas you are not able to do so at UT Health Science Center. They do not have specific residency preferences. They do require a headshot. So let's pause and talk about the headshot for a second. We all are sort of seeing what Zoom life is like, and we see some really good Zoom profile pictures and some really not good ones. This needs to be a professional headshot. This doesn't need to be, a prom picture or, a picture where you just think like, man, I was having a really good hair day. It needs to be you're in business casual at the very least, but really suit or suit jacket would be appropriate. Good background, neutral, as professional as you can get. And a lot of places do sort of events where you can get a professional headshot. So if you need help kind of locating that, let me know. I've got resources. They do also require letters of recommendation, so be mindful of that. So Meharry is a historically Black college, and so that is a grouping of colleges that have a really rich history in working and being open to African Americans during segregation. It was the only place that they were able to attend, and so Meharry was actually the largest private Black academic health sciences center. So for the long time, it was the only place that African Americans could get medical education. So it has a very rich history. They're very focused on serving the underserved, providing healthcare to underserved communities, and educating underrepresented groups to go into healthcare. So they have a really great mission. They're also rooted in the United Methodist Church. So there is a religious affiliation there. And finally, outside of their dental program, they do have 2 graduate programs, and they get an average of 2,000 applications to those graduate programs every year. And like I mentioned, their focus is serving the underserved. And each student who arrives at Meharry campus knows that they're expected to continue and expand upon the legacy that has been left for them. So this is a school that's very passionate about its history. It's very focused on making sure that its mission and its history continues. And it's a very supportive environment from the students that I have known that have gone there, both to the dental school and to other programs. They've commented on what a lovely and supportive environment it is. So it's a really good school if you are someone who's very community driven. You will definitely feel that at Meharry. So now we're going to go into Georgia, and it's one dental school, and that's the Dental College of Georgia at Augusta University. The school is located in Augusta, Georgia. They offer a DMD, and they have a class size of 96. Pretty average DAT score on par with UTL Science Center. And then their GPA averages are a little bit lower with a 3.48 science and a 3.56 overall. They strongly prefer the completion of an undergraduate degree, but if you are not going to do that, you have to complete at least 90 credit hours to apply. So this is Georgia's place. If you are a Georgia resident, most of the seats are held for you. Up to 10% of the seats are for out-of-state residents and eligible international candidates. Applicants are not required to have dental shadowing, but it's strongly recommended. The average applicant that is admitted has at least 300 hours of dental shadowing. So this is the part where you take notice and say, okay, you're not asking me to do this, but you are admitting a whole bunch of people that have done this. So using critical thinking skills, you know, I should probably do some shadowing if I'm interested in the Dental College of Georgia. Then we have Alabama, which is our one dental school in Alabama. And that's the University of Alabama, Birmingham, which is not terribly far from Chattanooga. So not out without the realm of going. It is in Birmingham, and they also offer the DMD. They too have a smaller class size of 63, but a higher DOT average of 21.4, and then a higher GPA with the 3.61 and the 3.7 GPAs. They prefer that you complete the undergraduate degree, and they also give preference to Alabama residents. UAB also has some really cool dual degrees, and you may see that, and I didn't put that in the presentation, but it's something that I wanted to touch on. You're going to start seeing that there is always going to be a section for dual degrees, and you're going to see things like a DMD MPH or a DMD MBA. And so an MBA is a Master of Business Administration, and MPH is a Master of Public Health. So we're starting to see this pairing, not just with dental school, but with medicine as well, where on your way to getting your professional doctorate, you can also earn a master's degree. So if you're thinking about opening up your own practice, a dual degree with an MBA may be something beneficial for you if you are not thinking you're going to hire someone to handle the business side of things, or if you're going to be interested in working in underserved areas or working in areas of public health, then having that dual degree of public health along with your dental degree will be very helpful. So, small deviation from the presentation. Applicants are strongly encouraged to take prerequisite courses for which they have earned AP, IB, or other credit at the university level. So what that means is they will accept AP for things like biology and chemistry. They won't like it. And it's entirely possible that if it comes down to between someone who does have AP credit and did not repeat it, and someone who does not have AP credit or has it and repeated it, they may go with that person that has the college level for it. They too do not have a required number of shadowing hours. However, they do require shadowing. So that is something that you get to kind of figure out of how much do they want. It's a mind game, but it should consist primarily of shadowing general dentists, and on average, those accepted have at least 100 hours of shadowing. All right, so that concludes the presentation. For those that are watching later, thank you for coming, for watching, and we are now going to stop the recording.